Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective. This is the Thursday Collective, and the collective is here today. The collective that matters, of course, Paul, Guay, Jacqueline Schumann, Daniel behind the scenes, and your host, Mark Pellegrino. And today, we're going to take, I guess, three topics like we did last time. Any three, we're going to reach into a hat, grab out a topic, and then hopefully that stimulates some interesting conversation. I have not picked a single one of my topics. Somebody else did for me, our eminent producer, Daniel. And I wasn't going to give him credit for that because I said, hey, I'm from Hollywood and I like stealing things and not giving credit to people. But I decided, I'm with a bunch of objectivists, so I can't go that road anymore. I can't go the low road. I got to go the high road. There's a certain amount of power that comes with being the host of a show. As the host of a show, I get to pick who goes first. As you can see, my two partners here are cringing, waiting in anticipation with bated breath. Which one will I choose? And I'm going to do it this way. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. My mother says to pick the very best one, and you are not it. So normally that would have landed on Paul, but I'm going to start. See what I did there?
You're so sneaky. You're so tricky.
Sneaky guy. So this comes by way of Daniel, but I thought it was a great question that I think could stimulate tons of conversation, or maybe not, because I think most objectivists sort of know the answer to this. But for you non-objectivists tuning in for the first time, I think you would be interested in our take. If you could make one amendment to the Constitution, what would it be? Now, should I give my answer first? Is that the way this works?
I think so.
Yeah, I think there should be I think I'll follow in Rand's footsteps and say there should be an amendment separating government and economics with an impenetrable firewall like church and state. I think that would solve most of our ills and all of the problems attributed to politics and the corruption in politics, and actually binding business into those corruptions and problems, I think would be fixed by that simple amendment. What say you guys? Paul, what say you?
I think that's a great idea. The first thing that comes to my mind in terms of an amendment is the requirement that everybody be 5'7" or taller. I think we need a taller country. I think we need to stand tall in righteousness and liberty. And I think those of us who couldn't live up to the standard should, just go off and die. No, I think that's.
So you agree with you agree with Randy Newman?
Yes, Randy. Yeah, Randy had a lot of good ideas.
People have no reason to live.
Yeah,
wow.
And I speak as a short person myself. I think that's a great idea. I would be slightly more abstract and think in terms of only those laws may be passed which are consistent with the inhibiting of the initiation of force and fraud against other people. So there would be a philosophical test. Is this law going to enhance freedom and people not being deceived by fraud, or is it going to make things worse? I would also, and this is a subset, and you basically said we were only allowed one amendment, but I would require that cost benefits be applied to every single law that is being considered, and that the opponents of the law or of the potential law give suggested unintended consequences that have to be taken seriously before the law is passed. Now, I know there's ways to fudge that, obviously, but I think we don't think in terms of costs and benefits enough. We think in terms of this sounds really good. If we were to do this, this would be great. If it were done by unicorns and genies who had only our best interests as we in our private minds conceive them to be, this is going to turn out well. But as you guys probably know, many things don't actually work that way. It turns out there are fewer unicorns than we wish for. And things sometimes turn out badly, but sort of predictably. If somebody who was an enemy of the idea had said, guys, there's an excellent chance this could lead to this, this, and this. So I'd love to see serious debate about unintended consequences.
I just want you to know your first proposition, Paul, killed our producer, Daniel. He is 5'6", so he fell under the scale. He will no longer be with us. And I just want you to see, speaking of consequences and costs, how much that would cost this show. It would cost this show a great deal for killing.
Wouldn't all the children die?
No, you got to give them a chance.
Children can be grandfathered in if you'll forgive the impossibility of that.
As long as they grow.
I don't want to take this in a different direction, but I also thought we may value an amendment that required something of someone to be a citizen. I don't mean service for the country, but I mean civic knowledge. So that just being born here, for example, doesn't automatically give you the power of the vote, especially if your desire is to vote other people's property away from them and give them to other people.
I would vote for them to be interim citizens until they reach the age at which they are able to take some sort of test because you want to protect the people that are born here, but in the same way that you have to take a test when you want to get on the road. I mean, if we give people tests to drive, then I think we should a minor citizenship test is not a lot to ask for. Who was the first president of the United States? What are the 3 branches of the government? Stuff like that.
But also, don't you think if you are a citizen of a country, you accept the values of that country, and we should be crystal clear on what those values are, and you're voting for those values, right? You're voting for the values of individual rights and non-use of force against people. Yeah.
So in a way, that test becomes like a choice. Do you want to be? You've reached an age, you're at an age where you understand what the values of this country are. Do you want to be part of it? And if so, yay or nay, and understanding it. Yeah, I think that I don't know if that sounds a little authoritarian or dystopian, or I don't know. I feel like there are ways that could possibly go wrong. My amendment would be I would finally codify a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to her own body, or a person's right to his or her own body that would cover everything. You have the right to do with your body as you see fit, as long as you don't use it as a torpedo to hurt somebody else's body. That would be my amendment.
Well, that rules out boxing and MMA for pretty much all of us.
It does not. It does not. You can consent. You can consent to get into a ring and beat the crap out of each other.
All right. I have a standing offer to any socialists out there who want to take a stab at it. So I know Jax needs her coffee, and we should probably avoid her, but I think that's the perfect reason to make her the next victim. Jax, what is your interesting topic for discussion today?
My interesting topic. So I have 2 of them. I have sort of a non-serious one and then a kind of serious one. I'll go with the non-serious one first as I warm up in the morning. I'm finding the Gwyneth Paltrow ski trial comedy gold. I'm glued to the screen with, I don't know if you guys have seen any of the footage at all. I think in a way it kind of rivals the Amber Heard Johnny Depp in a different way that's not so much of a kangaroo court. But the lawyers to me are hilarious. I can't wait for SNL to do skits on them. The lawyer. So you guys know about this case at all?
No.
Should I enlighten the viewers? Okay. So back in 2016, Miss Gwyneth Paltrow and her, stick figure of a person was skiing at Deer Valley in Utah. And she had her children in ski lessons there, right? So they were on a beginner green slope, and Miss Paltrow was going down the hill. Everybody was going down at the midway point to meet for lunch, when, as she alleges, she was slammed into or hit from behind by a man named Terry something. Can't remember his last name. A now 70-year-old, I would imagine back in this time, it was like mid 60-year-old retired optometrist who's blind in one eye. And was hit from behind. And the way that she describes it is, she was skiing, and then all of a sudden his skis came in between her skis and spread her legs, and she felt the man behind her grunting, and she didn't know if it was a pervert or some weird practical joke. And then they both ended up skiing and falling over to the side, where she kind of ended up spooning him, as she describes, right? He describes a completely different story. He describes that he was skiing on his merry way, going downhill, and all of a sudden he hears a blood-curdling scream. This is how he described it. Like that. He literally, and he hears a blood-curdling scream, and it sounded like somebody was going to hit a tree. And before he knows it, he's just bam, he's been slammed into the hardest he's ever been hit in his entire life, as he claims. And he falls over and he's knocked unconscious for anywhere up to 5 seconds. Oh, maybe it was 2 minutes. Actually, it might have been 10 minutes. It depends on what kind of attention he wants to get from his VA doctor when he's telling the story. And so he's suing her because he claims nobody helped him. Everybody just abandoned him. And he's suing her for $300,000. She is countersuing him for $1 and attorney's fees. She's basically saying this didn't happen at all. The ski instructor's account mirrors Gwyneth's account exactly. And but then, the defense the plaintiff's lawyers are basically saying, well, the ski instructor, he's getting paid, so of course he's going to say whatever Gwyneth wants him to say. And so it's just a hilarious shit show to watch. Gwyneth comes into court every day wearing more money than she's being sued for, $65,000 jewelry and a monogram notebook, and with her kombucha or whatever the F it is she's drinking, and, wisp her way into court. But she's actually a fairly credible witness. She's just so annoying that we just love to bag on her.
You're not a fan. You're not a fan of Gwyneth?
I'm not a big fan of Gwyneth. No, I just find her to be I don't know, living kind of in a different dimension. I mean, she's a good actress for sure.
Different dimension in what respect? Because her mom was Blythe Danner, and she's sort of come from privilege, and and so has never really known struggle. I
think maybe that could be it. I just don't feel like she has a good. I mean, one of her complaints about this whole incident was, well, I lost a half day of skiing, and which sure, that's granted, and she had to run down and immediately get a massage, and it's just she's not a very relatable person. Jennifer Lawrence is a more relatable actor to me. She's somebody that I could imagine.
Grass. Yeah, she's still touching grass. She's earthy.
And I feel like Gwyneth is she just sort of floats, and I don't feel like she has a really great basis in I mean, she talks about her health, what she does on a daily basis, and she wakes up in the morning and and she's doing her intermittent fasting, and then she makes herself some kind of health thing, and then she goes and sits in the sauna, and then sits in the infrared, and it's when do you work? I know she works as an actress, but she's just one of these people that's just too fun to make fun of. But the trial, I'm glued to it, because it's just I just can't wait for all the comedy stuff. She was wearing she wears glasses, of course, different pair of glasses every day. And she was wearing this one pair of glasses, and now all the memes on the internet, she looks exactly like Jeffrey Dahmer. She's wearing the same glasses. I highly recommend watching the trial. I think today is decision day, so I'm going to be glued to the TV probably after this. Work schmark, but I think the decision is today. It'll be interesting to see who the jury finds for. I think that they'll probably fine for Gwyneth, because the witness is just so I don't know. He's completely, I don't find him to be very believable, but the lawyers are hilarious to me because these are civil lawyers. They're not like big time criminal attorneys, you know, who are very like smooth and stuff in court. And the lawyer that is the lawyer for the plaintiff, for the man who's suing Gwyneth, has like all this weird kind of fan love for Gwyneth. And she's like, how tall are you? And Gwen is like, a little under 5'10". She's like, oh my gosh, I have to wear 4-inch heels just to be 5'5". And what were you wearing on the day of the ski incident? Oh, but I'll bet you that your ski outfit was probably more expensive than everybody else's. And then her lawyer like has a head cold and like is constantly like he's got like Kleenex up his nose and he's like
Probably
picking his
cocaine.
nose.
Don't, it's not a head cold, it's cocaine. Well, this is very interesting. I didn't know about this drama going on. Paul, do you have anything to say about Miss Paltrow? Something nice, I hope, because she's been just.
I love Shakespeare in Love. So I think we need to start with that. I think if I were her lawyer and putting her on the stand, I'd basically be saying, we love Shakespeare in Love. Did you have a good time making it? Because I think that's how you establish credibility in a witness. I don't think Saving Private Ryan got ripped off, despite the incredible opening 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. I think Shakespeare in Love was the best film of the year. So that's my intellectual contribution. Also, I think that actors have an unfair advantage when it comes to testifying on the stand because you guys lie for a living and you do it really well. You get paid for it. So it's hard to tell with a good actor whether a good actor is lying or not. I mean, I've seen tons of TV shows where somebody is testifying on the stand. I'm going, boy, I'd believe that person in a second. And of course, the person's lying because it's an actor playing a character. So I have nothing else that I know about this. From what I've heard, it sounds like the case against Gwyneth is ludicrous. And Jax is not making it sound other than ludicrous. So yeah, it sounds like fun to watch.
So a little piece of trivia here, Jax, my wife used to babysit Gwyneth.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
what was she like as a child?
Apparently very sweet. So I'm going to tell her your feelings about Gwyneth.
I don't dislike her. I just don't feel like I could have a regular conversation with her.
You probably couldn't. Paul, why did you not throw Emma into the mix? I mean, that's the thing that put Gwyneth on the map, right? And that's pretty doggone good.
You know, I'm not sure I've seen Emma. I'd have to check my list.
All right, you got to check it out. I also want you to know something else, Paul. Roland Norvath for €2.49 is 5'6". All right, you also killed him in your first.
I'm sorry. There's a definition of adequacy that if we don't agree upon it, it's going to feel arbitrary. So I think we need to agree upon a definition of heightal adequacy. And if we can't, it's above 5'7". It can't stop before 5'7" because, of course, I'm 5'7". People below me don't need to be treated with the same respect as people I have to look up to. It's axiomatic. It's built into the language. And I think you guys need to get on my side here.
Look, I think the Twitterverse is going to go crazy over this, and you are going to be the target. But so no hard feelings on the part of Roland, who gives an additional €2.49. That's coffee money for you, Jax. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Well, he doesn't have much time left on this planet in Paul's world. So
his last will and testament is coffee for Jax. That's very selfless and altruistic of you, Roland. Thank you.
Catherine
is not meant as an insult, though.
Okay, Catherine is giving us $1.99 for ARCUK or YouTube or whatever. Thank you, Catherine, for being a devoted listener and a new objectivist. Robert Nasir, a member for 11 months and also a very fine contributor to the show. If celebrity trials are something we've got time for, and yes, we do, then the world and our lives are much, much better than we realize. Isn't that true? And isn't that a great way to look at it? That
is.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna give a counter example of something horrible in some other part of the world, but I think we should end that on that note. Paul, we're waiting with bated breath to hear what your topic of conversation is going to be. I think I know because I think I saw in an email, so I don't know that I'll be surprised. But go ahead, spring it on the world.
Okay, so a friend of mine on Facebook posted the American Film Institute's film festival requirements from 2019. And I'm going to guess that they're the same now, or they could be worse. But there are 3 questions that stood out for me if you want to enter your film in the AFI Film Festival. Number 1 is the director female or female identifying? Number 2 is, does the director consider themselves a person of color? I think they'd be considering themselves illiterate at that point. And number 3 is, does the director identify as LGBTQIA+, question mark? So I'm thinking about this as an objectivist and a human being, and somebody who is a proud 5'7". I of course believe in freedom of association. I think that nobody has to accept me as a member unless I meet whatever their qualifications are. Also, as an objectivist, I'm against the concept of fraud. While I would happily lie to most Nazis, I try not to lie other than that when I'm not dealing with Nazis or communists for that matter. However, if I wanted to enter a film in a film festival, how seriously would I take these requirements? Would I not lie if it would help me in the festival, if it would actually get me in the festival? If there's a barrier to entry, which is that I don't answer these in the appropriate politically correct way, I'm not going to have a market for, one of the markets for my films would be taken away. And my chance to influence the people who go to this particular festival or have heard of this particular festival go away. So I think the correct objectivist answer is you have no right to violate their freedom of association by lying against their stupid, evil questions. But I don't know what I would actually do in this situation. So I was sort of opening this up to what would you guys do? Would you lie to get accepted to something like this?
I would not, because I feel like since a lie is anti-reality, reality always finds a way to come back and find you. And then when that's exposed, the shame and the public shame, it would be, especially since you're claiming to be a member of a marginalized group that you're not a member of, would be pretty intense. I think the social media mob would be animated to take you out in every possible way. It'd be the end of your career. I mean, look at Smollett, right? Who pretended to be attacked by two MAGA guys in Chicago at a time when the political atmosphere was so volatile, and it's also at a time when he was negotiating a contract, I think, to sort of insert himself into the category of the abused and the unprivileged and the victims groups that we all seem to be obsessed with. And look what that did to him. It backfired big time, and he's out, gone. I don't think he's coming back. That's how gone he is. Jax, would you lie?
I would question why I would want to be part of that festival in the first place if those were the. Why would I want my work in that festival? Because I just don't think that any of the work would be good if they made those requirements. So I probably would not. I would tell the truth to if it was something that I really like. If I had to be part of this festival, let's say, to get to whatever next rung in the ladder of my career, like it was a do or die. I had to be part of it. I would tell the truth to the extent that was true. Like, okay, I'm female, I'm minority, I'm a built-in minority, but that's it. I wouldn't. I agree with Mark that it would come back to get you, but I just don't think that it would be a good festival in the first place. I don't think that any of the art would be that great. It would be people that were virtue signaling and putting in a whole bunch of woke stuff, and we know that stuff doesn't come off well. I don't mean to detract, but Velma is one of the shows that I'm just hideously upset about.
What show?
Velma on HBO. I think it's on HBO. It's
animated
a new comedy.
Series.
With animated series that is about Velma from Scooby-Doo, and it's completely not Scooby-Doo at all. But that's sort of what you get when you force those kind of tenets, I think, on people. But the important question, Paul, is would you lie?
Yeah, so I'm reserving my answer on that one because I actually haven't figured it out yet. Jax, let me adjust the question somewhat because I understand what your objection is. let's say all film festivals required this. All film festivals had a version of these questions, because there are industries such as teaching or whatever, where politics have come to the fore in terms of you have to talk about your experience with diversity or whatever in order to get some teaching jobs or keep some teaching jobs. So for the sake of principle, as opposed to how the world is in 2023, if the barrier to entry to an entire career perhaps were to lie, for example, during the witch hunt or whatever, the House Un-American Activities Committee, where you couldn't work in the film industry unless you were to affirm that you had never been a member of the Communist Party. Putting aside how we feel about the Communist Party, what would your answer be to something like that, where you can't simply go to another school or another film studio or another film festival? This is the barrier. You lie or you don't get in.
Then if every festival is like this, then I'm in a dystopia. Then the world is not the world is not adhering to any kind of reality, at least the world that I'm living in, the society that I'm living in. I might just end up becoming a taxi driver and writing my own stuff and getting a troupe of actors together to perform it in my dining room or something. I would seriously consider, because it's not, if that's the case, right? If every film festival is putting this like massive, DEI, which I think it should just be called DIE. Why don't they call it DIE? Diversity, inclusion, and whatever the E stands for. Equity, diversity. Why didn't they call it DIE? Because that's eventually what's going to happen. We're all just going to die. But if every film festival had this barrier to entry in, then what's the film industry like as a whole? Could any of my writing ever, see the light of day if it didn't have these elements in it, and not just me identifying with whatever parameters they've set out? How would any of my art be seen? I don't know that I would even want to do art in that, in the public forum. I would probably just end up doing it privately, and like I said, be a cab driver or something.
Paul, I would lie. Under the circumstances that you just suggested, that's the equivalent of a Nazi not allowing a Jew to work because they're a Jew. And when they steal a potato, stealing is good. Stealing is a pro-life statement on their part, because the administration, the world, the universe in which they live is making it impossible for him to live. So I would say I would lie, and I would proudly lie, because they're making it impossible for me to live.
Well, and I will say, if I didn't have the option of doing another job, like if that was the only job I could do, I would absolutely lie as well. But I would also try to find ways of subverting. I would write stories that on the surface were very, conformed to everything, but I would try to find a way to subvert the whole system.
What you do is you just take one of the 24 frames with this.
Right.
People get subliminal messages every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right. You've stirred up the universe out there, Paul, with your standards. With your standards, Catherine for $1.99 says, "I'm 5'6". So screw you, Paul. Okay.
I'm happily married. I cannot take you up on that, but thank you for the offer.
Ashley shrugged for $1.99. She has a much more hopeful and I think objectivist forward way of looking at this. I'm 5'5", but can balance and walk on tiptoes. So I think that's a fine adjustment. I think maybe she would. You think pass muster, Paul?
I think laws should have plenty of exceptions, and people who are open to bribes should be in charge of who passes.
Okay. And there's also the option, Ashley, I'm 6'3". I can give you, I can take off a few for you. Rose Richards, that probably can go in all kinds of weird directions. Rose Richards for €5. Finally, I can watch one TDO. Hi, everyone. Been working out, Mark? I have. Nice to see you all. Thank you, Rose.
I'm sorry, you get the shout out about working out. Jax is back, looking fine, and we don't get the shout out for Jax. It's Mark.
Mark's wearing his rolling shirt. He's wearing his no-gi rolling shirt.
Very nice.
Well, it's sort of because I have to go right after this and actually roll, so I have to be prepared for it. It's not like I'm not showing off or anything. Jax can actually kick my ass. I almost said kiss my ass.
You can kiss my ass, Mark.
You can actually kick that. Robert Nacier for $20.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
Damn.
Mark speaks rightly. Love is the exception making, which here means if the work which gives my life meaning is closed to me because of irrationality, I will lie and be openly willing to pay the price afterwards. I gotta say, I'm on that trip right there.
That's a much more articulate version of where I think I would wind up.
A much more articulate version than what I said too, but I'm on that page. Jonathan Honig for $4.99. He's not saying anything, but he's just contributing the money. Thank you, Jonathan. It's always great that you're watching, as well as a great participant in the show. Wait, so now who's up next? Am I up next? I've lost.
Paul, did you actually give your complete answer?
No, Jackson, I refuse to, on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
Oh, please, come on. Come
I
on.
haven't figured it out.
It's a good tease. It's a good tease, I think. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Jonathan sent a sticket of lemon and pear high five. A sticker. Okay, a sticker. Correction. Okay, cool. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. Here's a good question from Daniel, not from me. Is there going to be a global culture? And what would it take?
I don't know what that means. What's a global culture? Just like we all have the same culture globally?
Yeah, as like the Anglosphere expanded out with the idea of constitutional government, individual rights, that kind of stuff is considered to be sort of an Anglo-Saxon aspect of Anglo-Saxon culture that has pretty much expanded into lots of other cultures. Would it be possible that, say, Americanism could become an aspect of every culture around the world instead of, sort of, I'm looking just purely at the political things, but maybe he's even talking about the social things and the habits and mores of people in various regions.
Is this before or after the global AI takeover?
Let's do a before and after analysis. You started it.
I don't see it happening before, because if this is the type of thing that I would think social media would theoretically lead to, would be that you would be crossing national boundaries and perhaps ideological boundaries and getting a monoculture. I don't see that. I don't see our culture as being significantly similar to Chinese or Russian or North Korean or various other cultures. Thank God, for various reasons. So I don't see that.
I think it would have to, those cultures would have to sort of rise to the occasion, which is a very politically incorrect statement to say those cultures are inferior, and would have to actually shed that inferiority. And therein lies the rub, right? Because lots of folks think that holding on to the old stuff is a value. We have traditionalists in our own country that want to hold on to religiosity as a value and impose that on the rest of us and claim that that should be the universal culture. So we have that sort of conservative wall that we would have to bash up against.
Yeah, and I mean, we certainly wouldn't want a monoculture unless it was one that we had chosen. I'm not interested in agreement if it's agreement on the wrong principles. This sort of ties into something, I'm sorry, that either you or Jack said about the requirement for the constitutional requirement for basically signing on to the principles of the country. If I can write those principles, or somebody with whom I agree writes those principles, of course I want that. Yeah. And if anybody else writes it, it's the worst idea I've ever heard, because I don't want to have to adhere to values that I don't agree with. So yeah, if I'm God and in charge, bring it on.
It'd also make AOC ineligible for voting and holding office.
What a shame.
Oh,
I know that sounds totalitarian, but I don't think it is. I'm sorry.
What would she do?
I think blocking totalitarians is actually the right thing to do. That's pro-liberty. Jax, what do you think about this global culture thing?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm so much more pessimistic, I guess. I think if there is going to be a global culture, it's not going to be, at least right now, at this stage in the game, I don't think it's going to be a global culture of Americanism or capitalist values. I think that the global culture would be far more, speaking of DEI or DIE, I think that the global culture would be far more altruistic, I think China and Russia would get in the way of any kind of global culture, because I don't think either of those countries would be willing. I think probably China would go harder because they are very stringent on their culture and their heritage and their dynasties. I think to have a global culture, there is some sort of requirement to, maybe I'm wrong, to give up on past traditions. Everybody would have to shuck some version of traditionalism from them in order to get onto the global culture boat. And I don't know that China would ever do that. I think they would only if it served their interests.
I think they're utterly irrelevant, both of these countries. I think if as in the 18th century, when liberty started to spread and Jefferson saw it as a good type of contagion from England to us, from us to France, and people were starting to get that vibe, that Declaration of Independence vibe. If the world came on board with those kind of principles, those who did not are irrelevant and would be left out in the marketplace in the entire marketplace, goods, services, and ideas. And I think they would want to not be excluded for long and would have to come on board. And I think technology is sort of the way of doing it. Paul, you said, that technology and social media gave us the opportunity to intermingle cultures and get to know one another, and that perhaps that could create a sort of world culture. It hasn't done it, but
right.
There was a potentiality for that.
I think it would be interesting to, post singularity, when all of our consciousnesses have been uploaded into the giant digital consciousness of the sky. That would be a very interesting global culture. And the more I'm seeing AI gain traction, the less I think the singularity is ridiculous. If my double negatives make sense there.
Well, if I could live forever, that would be great. Jax, what's your what else? What other topics?
So okay, so this is kind of my serious one, and I'm going to try not to get really too upset, but I'm pissed, actually. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about I think like Time Magazine's nominated all the women of the year. It's Women's History Month, I guess. This March is Women's History Month now. And I'm tired of all the history months. I'd just like to get rid of all the histories months because I just don't know how many different types of inclusions we need to. We only have 12 months, people. We only have 12 months, and there's not a lot of room for everything that we want to have history for. But I am really upset about transgender athletes taking up women's spots. It really, and I know it's not a lot, but it really pisses me off on behalf of all women, on behalf of how hard women fought to get women separated from men so that women could have their own sports, and leave it to men. I'm sorry, men, but leave it to men to screw that up for women. Leave it to men to come in with their balls cut off or whatever, but still penises, and playing in our sandbox. I have zero against trans. Like, if you want to, you can identify as a tree for all I care. But coming into women's sports, you're a 6'1" dude that swam D1 NCAA. And now all of a sudden you're identifying as a woman and beating all the records.
And ranked 400th or something like that.
Yeah, in the men's sports, right? And then came over to the women's side and is beating out all the women. You're a dude that wants to beat up on women in MMA. So let's get in the ring and beat on some women. Just no. And I'm also just on a tirade over them like if you're trans and if you feel better as a woman and dressing as a woman, that's great, but you're still not a woman. You didn't wake up when you were 12 years old in a pool of blood and with like what felt like vice grips on the inside of your stomach, you know, just turning the clamp on, and have that every month for the rest of your life. I'm really upset about it. Like I'm outraged, and I wasn't outraged about this like 2 weeks ago. Something has switched in me, and I'm really pissed off about it. Like I probably need to go see a therapist or something.
So wait a minute. Are you saying that the videos I've seen on YouTube of trans women having period cramps are not real? It's actually gas.
They can, because of hormones. So I read up on this. They can, because they take hormones, they can have like PMS sort of symptoms. But you know, men also have, believe it or not, men have a monthly quote unquote period, or a monthly, you know, whatever, ups and downs. You guys don't bleed, but you know, you guys have like moodiness and stuff like that, shockingly. But no. I mean, it just. And women talking or trans talking about, oh, I guess it's time for my period. And it's like, it's just like a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And you know what I'm really upset about is that women are taking this lying down. We're taking this lying down. I'm not seeing like, where is the outrage? The women that are outraged about it are getting branded as, you know, transphobic or homophobic. And, you know, where, like, if it were the other way, right? There are cases. There is one female swimmer that identifies as a man and ended up swimming as a man and like beating men, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if it were the other way around, men would be up in arms that, you know, that women were coming in and taking away their sports. I just don't understand it. I don't understand, you know, why there isn't more outrage.
Well, you just said though, they get branded and they're afraid of the brand. Paul, what say you?
It's infuriating. The first time I heard of it, I thought it was a joke. We're in a world in which everybody's afraid to say that the emperor has no clothes, and we actually have an empress with balls. It is inconceivable that somebody would want to cheat by jumping 400 places in line, by going from the male to the female pool or whatever. I'm infuriated, and I'm not participating in any of the sports. I agree with everything that Jack said in terms of, if you identify as trans or whatever, fantastic. I have zero problem with that. I can't get too excited either way, but if it makes you happy or whatever, or that's what you see, fantastic. The notion that everybody else has to sign on to this new gender that you claim, to me, is a different point entirely. I heard on the radio somebody making the following comparison. If your average Joe takes over the cockpit of a plane that you're in and says, hey, I identify as a pilot, by what makes it moral for us to say, you can identify all you want, but you'll be doing that from the passenger seat? What makes it wrong for us to prevent that, to grab that person? I'm sorry. Why, there's a reason that we don't allow that, because we're not quite insane yet, because we can see that's like sort of the end of the road where all of this stuff leads to. There is a difference between a subjective and an objective reality. That's why the notion of my truth should immediately tell us, oh, we're in subjective land. Okay, so you just mean by my truth, you mean my opinion. By the way, lived experience doesn't make your experience more impressive. It's just an adjective. Or is it an adverb? Not sure. This is insane. The idea that we can't say what a man and a woman is enough in sports, where obviously it clearly matters and clearly has ramifications, is crazy. I would applaud a woman going into a man's sport and winning for obvious reasons, because there's a person who doesn't have the gifts that the male takes for granted, does not have them biologically, structurally, in terms of testosterone, and is winning despite that. Of course, I would say you go girl. That doesn't make her a guy. That makes her a girl or a woman who's better than the guys, which is fantastic. The notion of a guy who's got the advantages of testosterone, bone structure, muscle density, and all that, going into any sport that requires those things or that benefits from those things that women are participating in it's evil. It's cheating and it's evil.
I couldn't agree more. Cyrano d'Anconia with $2 Canadian 79 cents. There hasn't been one great objectivist-ish movie. I don't know. What about Liar Liar?
Aha, that's very kind. What about Cyrano de Bergerac? I know that this is controversial, but I thought The Fountainhead was a really good film. I think We the Living is a really good film. My friend Robert Bidinotto 10 years ago put a list of 100 films together that are at least consistent with objectivism. They're obviously not specifically objectivist, but they advocate heroism and justice and achievement and life-affirming values and things like that. There are definitely movies like that out there. Of course, they're in the minority, especially in 2023. But, the American film industry started out with a we can do it individualistic ethos. And although I'm sure there were flaws in every film ever made, there were films that were life affirming and affirming of what I would generally see as objectivist values. You do have to seek them out, though.
I mean, look, even a movie like Rocky, which we were talking about earlier, a guy, the total underdog who faces overwhelming odds, is overlooked by everybody, but digs deep and finds the strength within him to take on the champion of the world. I mean, that's pretty freaking amazing. You can't watch that.
I completely agree.
And not be uplifted by it. Christopher Smith with $2.99 Canadian, just giving us the money. Thanks, Christopher. We appreciate you. Ashley shrugged again for $1.99. Jack's preach. They haven't been in the trenches.
Amen, sister.
Amen. Michael Sanders for $2. America is materially rich. I sort of disagree with this part, and spiritually poor. That's in essence true, but I think we're also getting materially poor as well, as our material well-being is following our spiritual well-being down the tubes. Somebody wants to know where people can find that list, Paul.
I can send it to you guys. I'd ask Robert's permission first, but I can send it to you guys and you guys could make it available to your viewers if he's okay with that.
That would be great. I would like to see those movies.
Okay.
Paul, did you have another?
Yeah, so I was going between kind of serious questions and not serious questions. So here's kind of a light one. So pride is a virtue and I think is recognized as such by objectivists. Can you be proud of someone else? What does it mean to be proud of someone else? Can I be proud of my son? Because I haven't done what he's done. And a sort of related question, can you be proud of things you didn't work to achieve? So if I have a certain IQ or certain sports proclivities or whatever, and I'm not claiming either of them for myself, before I go to work on those, before I maximize them, can I be proud of having something that's innate, or is that something I should take for granted? And then it's the building upon those qualities that I should be proud of.
Yeah, for me, I would say you're proud of the things that you yourself have control over and you yourself achieve. You can feel a sense of admiration for somebody else, I think. And I think you can feel pride for the accomplishments of your kid because you laid the foundations upon which that kid is building upon. And if they build higher than you, it's in part because of the things that you provided for them, the values that you provided for them, the perspective that you provided for them that allows them to be independent and strong in the world, anti-fragile, as they say, sort of the opposite of the way the culture is going today. So I think you can be proud of watching your kid achieve. And you admire somebody with whom you've had absolutely no influence on their life, but you can admire them and then even, try to take on those traits for yourself, for your own self-improvement. Jax, what say you with respect?
Well, are we saying that you can't be proud of something that you didn't have some kind of hand in bringing about? You can't be proud.
So that's the question that's the question I'm asking.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess you can. I'm proud of my daughter in many ways. I'm proud of family members when they make good decisions. I guess I use the term fairly loosely. And maybe, you're looking for, having a better definition. I'm proud of the things, that I've done, but I feel like I can be proud of people when I have zero to do with whatever success that they are achieving. I can be proud of them for the choices that they've made. Admiration to me is a little bit different. Admiration to me just has this essence of looking up to something, to like, when I admire somebody, I'm sort of like looking up to them, and wow, I wish I could, I wish I could do that, or envy is kind of the wrong word here, but admiration is more like I'm looking upward. That's the best thing.
Well, maybe what you feel in that sense that we call pride when you're looking at somebody in your family achieving something, even though you had nothing to do with it, is a sense of gratification that, an affirmation of values that you agree with or that you think are good.
Yeah.
Maybe because I do think that pride is connected to the things that you do, or should be connected to the things that you do. When people say they're proud of things they can't help, like their skin color, their ethnicity, their culture,
right.
Proud to be an American. I mean, none of that rings to me at all.
No, I think pride has to be tied to volition. And to choices that people make. So I can be proud of choices that people make, even though I may have had nothing to do with it, but it aligns with my value system, and I can be proud that they made those good decisions. In the same way that what's the opposite of pride? Shame.
Yeah.
Can I feel ashamed?
But doesn't that mean you're associating that person in some way with you? You're associating their values,
my values, right,
with you. Yeah. It's in a personal way, as if you have in some way been responsible for where they are and what they're doing. I wouldn't feel shame if somebody I didn't know, or even somebody in the family, did something terrible. It doesn't reflect on me or my character or anything that I've given them. But if it did, if my kid, that I raised went out and did something terrible, I would feel shame. I would feel that I contributed in some way to this kid's psychological profile that enabled them to go out and do something terrible. That would seriously affect me.
Yeah, Daniel asked an interesting question about whether a teacher could feel pride for the achievements of his students. And I think about that because I'm a teacher and Mark's a teacher as well. I think to a certain extent you can. I think that one of the things to do is not take credit for their work or anything like that, but to the extent that you see growth during the time that you worked with them, and perhaps continued growth after the time that you work with them, I think you can be very happy for their achievement and to some extent feel pride in it as well.
I agree. And John Adams, I think, said, and I'm paraphrasing, that teaching was the eternal profession, because you never know where that influence, that seed that you planted, how far it's going to go. And it could go far, 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 far. You see it reverberate for generations and generations. I think Michael Sanders for $10 is clearing something up. When you're rich, you can get away with stupid things for longer. That's why California and New York can keep playing pretend world with all the socialism and gender fluidity and not collapse. You may be right, but 350,000, middle class and wealthy Americans leaving California every year. It's on the verge. It's on the verge. How about teacher feeling pride for his students? Okay, yes, since you just addressed that. I think that's possible too. I do feel pride for my students.
I think something also interesting about pride too is that to feel proud of something, do you guys think that kind of naturally puts the person feeling pride in a position of higher stature, or in a position, because we feel pride for our children, right? And raising them and them making good decisions, a teacher feeling pride for their students. So does the whole concept of pride intrinsically, I guess, suggest that there is a hierarchy at play? What do you guys think?
It's an interesting question. So I was lucky enough to direct 3 short films recently that I had written, and I think about, I'm proud of the work that the actors and the crew members did on the film, and I think, so am I right to feel pride because I worked with them, but I didn't do their work for them? Certainly, I would give direction to the actors, but if they don't have the talent and the will to carry it out, it doesn't matter. I make choices with the cinematographer, I make choices with the composer, and I'm certainly involved in all those, but they're the initial creative people, and I'm just sort of guiding, suggesting, or giving notes or whatever. But there's no question I feel pride, but I don't feel that I own their achievement. And in some cases, I'm looking up to their achievement. It's like, wow, I wish I could do what my composer did. That's fantastic. But I do feel a certain amount of pride in his achievement on the films.
It's still your baby, though. I mean, when all is said and done, it's a collaborative effort, right? But when
Yeah.
Bob Florence writes something for his, when he's passed away now, but when he writes a great piece of jazz for his orchestra, every single instrument is contributing to that piece, and it's a beautiful piece of music. But he should justifiably feel pride for writing it, conducting it, and knowing where the notes go and seeing the results, seeing the concretization of that idea that was just an abstraction on pieces of paper come to life. That there's nothing better than that. I
Because
think
the pride, I think, comes from the people rising to the occasion of your work, rising to the
My
level.
work having to rise to the level of their ability, depending. Yeah, but
well,
I
it could be either, right? I mean, I guess, well, but you should take, I hate the word should, but take more pride in your work, Paul. It's good work, and when people when people do good stuff with it, especially one of the things I love is, if I've written what I think is a pretty good line and an actor comes in and delivers it in a way I never even, I was like, wow, that's a really great line. It's almost like I didn't write it, but I did write it. They saw, whatever greatness in it and turned it into something fantastic.
That's pretty awesome. And now Robert Nasir is lending some clarity to this conversation in a way. Pride is a broad concept, and yes, you can be proud of your peers or even strangers empathetically because of virtues you share with them, which is sort of what we were talking about, or at least I was saying that I thought it was sort of an identification with somebody's values. You feel a sense of affirmation. That's interesting that it calls it pride. I don't know. I have to think about that concept. He says, in that sense, I feel proud of all kindred spirits. That's for Robert for another $2. Thank you for your support, Robert. All that's interesting. I'm going to have to really think about it and see what I come up with.
And because we are an objectivist group, and I know that it's kind of the end here, but I did do a very quick search on Ayn Rand's definition of pride. And in her speech, The Objectivist Ethics, Ayn Rand describes the virtue of pride as moral ambitiousness because it is predicated on the aspiration to live up to one's ideals. Fundamentally, pride is the moral principle of valuing one's self-esteem and taking the steps required to achieve it. So
yeah. So all of this is great food for thought for objectivists. Well, I don't know. I was very stimulated by that show. I hope you guys were. I hope our listeners were. We're coming to the end, of course. It is almost the top of the hour, so I have to announce at 10 o'clock p.m. UK time, Life on Earth with Robert Nasir, who's been a great contributor to this show today, on Context is Everything, Literally. That will be a good show. I think people should tune into that. It'll be very stimulating. Well, Paul, Jax, anything to say before we sign off this week's collective?
I think we have TV talk tomorrow, don't we, Mark?
We do?
I think we do.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow's Friday, and I think we decided we're going to do TV talk. So join us for TV talk tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. UK time. And you know the show that we're doing, Mr. Pellegrino?
I believe it'll be The Last of Us. Are we doing The Last of Us?
Yes, we are.
A worthy show to do.
Yes,
I think
we are.
Paul, if you haven't seen The Last of Us, I'd be very interested in your point of view on that show.
Yeah, you should watch it all tonight, Paul, and then come on the show tomorw.
It's possible. Only take about 8 hours.
Yeah.
Also, we were talking today about gender identities and acceptance of gender identities. I will be dropping a reality check on tolerance and exactly what that means to me, and hopefully you guys will identify with my version of what tolerance is as opposed to acceptance. I think they're different things, And that's all I have to say. So, folks, you've been watching the Daily Objective brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK. This is the Thursday Collective, and you better tune in next Thursday or
Else.
I was going to say something, but I'll just say or else. All right. See you, folks. Peace.
Bye.